Welcome back to AU Family Channel, and thank you so much for being here. It truly means the world to have you as one of our loyal listeners. If our stories have ever touched your heart, we are so grateful that you keep coming back to spend this time with us. So find somewhere comfortable, take a slow, deep breath, and let us begin today's story, together.
For 17 years, I lived behind my brother. Daniel was the golden one. Better grades, faster on the track, funnier at the dinner table, the name every relative said first when they walked through our door. I loved him the way you love the weather, without ever choosing it. And I hated him the way you hate a door that will not open. I spent my whole childhood certain he had been handed the life I deserved. Then one night, when I was 17 years old, I opened a notebook I was never meant to read, and I learned that the brother I envied had been quietly breaking for years. Daniel was 3 years older than me. Everything he touched turned into a story my parents told at parties. He read before he was 4. He won his first swimming ribbon at 6. By the time I started school, the teachers already knew our last name, and they knew it because of him. On my very first day of year 3, my teacher looked at my roll and smiled and said, "Oh, you are Daniel's brother." I remember the way she said it. Not unkindly, just like she had already met the important one, and I was the sequel nobody had asked for. There was a shelf in our hallway. My mother called it the achievement shelf, like it was a joke, but she dusted it every Sunday. It held Daniel's trophies: athletics, debating, science fair, a heavy gold one from a state final that he won when he was 14. 9 trophies by the time I was in high school. 9. I counted them constantly. On the far left corner, half hidden behind the biggest one, there was a small plastic thing I got for participation in a spelling bee. It had my name spelled wrong. Nobody ever noticed, and I never said anything about it. I want to be honest about something. Daniel was not cruel to me. That is the part that made it worse. If he had been mean, I could have hated him cleanly. Instead, he was kind. He helped me with my maths homework at the kitchen table with ever making me feel slow. He taught me to ride a bike in the driveway with his hand on my back until I did not need it. He was good, genuinely good, and the whole world agreed. There was no crime to point at. There was only me, standing beside him, disappearing a little more every year. Family dinners were the hardest. My aunts and uncles and grandparents would come over, and the questions went around the table in the same order every time. How is Daniel? How is school going for Daniel? Is Daniel still doing that running thing? Is Daniel thinking about medicine? And then, eventually, someone would remember I was there, and they would turn to me and say, "And how about you?" And I would say, "Fine." And they would nod and go straight back to Daniel. Fine. That was my whole personality at those tables. Fine. I got very, very good at saying it. So I became invisible on purpose. It felt safer than trying and losing. I stopped joining teams. I stopped putting my hand up. I picked subjects Daniel had never taken, so nobody could compare our marks. And then I did not really try at those either, because what was the point? If I never competed, I could never officially lose. I told myself I just did not care. That was a lie I told for so many years that I started to believe it. I did care. I cared so much that it hurt to breathe in that hallway with those 9 trophies. The bitterness started small, like a stone in a shoe. When Daniel won something, I would smile and say congratulations and mean maybe half of it. Then a third. Then none. I would sit in my room and hear my mother on the phone downstairs telling my grandmother the news, hear the pride in her voice climbing up through the floor into my carpet, and I would put a pillow over my head. I did not want him to fail exactly. I just wanted one single time for something to go wrong for him. Just a little, just enough for someone to look at me instead. When I was 15, I finally tried at something. I wrote a short story for an English competition, and I worked on it for 2 months. I did not tell anyone. It came second in the whole state. Second. I brought the certificate home in my bag like it was made of glass, and I waited for the right moment at dinner. And I never got it, because that was the same week Daniel got named school captain. The certificate stayed in my bag for 11 days. Then I put it in a drawer under some old socks. I never showed it to anybody at all. That was the year I stopped pretending inside my own head. I remember lying in the dark, listening to the house settle, and thinking a sentence that scared me. I hate him. Not I am jealous, not it is not fair. Just those 3 words, cold and clear. And then, because I was still a decent kid underneath all of it, I felt sick with shame, and I promised myself I would never think it again. I thought it again the next week, and the week after. Hating him became a private room I visited, and I always locked the door behind me. On the outside, I was perfect about it. I clapped at his assemblies, I helped carry his gear to the car, I posted a nice thing when he turned 18. My mother used to say we were lucky, that we never fought, that some brothers tear each other apart, and we just never did. She was proud of that. She had no idea. We never fought because I had already surrendered years ago. There was no war left to have. There was just me smiling in the family photos, standing slightly behind him, exactly where I had learned that I belonged. Then came his graduation. Our whole family drove 3 hours for it. Daniel got the academic award and the sport award, and then a special award the principal invented on the spot for outstanding contribution, and the hall stood up for him. I watched my father cry. I had never seen my father cry, not once in my life, and he cried in a school hall over my brother. And I sat there in a plastic chair in a shirt that itched, clapping with my hands going numb, feeling something in my chest turn from sadness into something much harder and colder. 2 weeks later, the letter came. Daniel got into the course he wanted, the hardest one, with a scholarship on top. My parents took us out to celebrate at the good restaurant, the one we only went to twice a year. Halfway through the meal, my mother raised her glass and looked around the table and said, "Our whole family is so proud of this boy." Then she started listing every single thing he had ever done, all the way back to that swimming ribbon. It took her 4 minutes. I timed it. She never once mentioned my name. Something broke in me that night. Not loudly. It was quieter than that. I excused myself and I stood in the restaurant bathroom with my hands on the cold sink, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I thought, they would not notice if I simply weren't here. Not in a dark way, in a factual way. It felt like arithmetic. When we got home, I went to my room and I did not say goodnight to anybody. And through the wall, I could hear my brother's music playing, the same 3 songs he always played, and I hated him. That is where the story would have ended if I had gone to sleep. But I could not. At about 2 a.m, I got up for water, and I heard something coming from the garage, a sound I did not recognize at first. I thought maybe an animal had gotten in. I walked down the hallway, past the 9 trophies, and I stood at the garage door, and I listened, and the sound was my brother. Daniel was sitting on the concrete floor between the car and the freezer, in the dark, crying so hard he could not get air in. I had never seen him cry. Not when he broke his wrist at 12, not at our grandfather's funeral. He was gasping, like someone drowning on dry land, with both hands pressed flat against his own chest, like he was trying to hold himself together. On the floor beside him, there was a black notebook, open, and a pen. He did not see me. I stood in that doorway for maybe 10 seconds. Then I did the coward thing. I backed away, and I went to my room, and I sat on my bed until the sun came up, shaking. The next afternoon, he went to the shops, and I went into the garage. I am not proud of this. I found the notebook on a shelf behind the paint tins, and I opened it. It went back 4 years. The first pages were normal, lists and training times. Then it changed. Page after page in my brother's neat handwriting. I cannot do this. I got 94, and Dad asked what happened to the other 6. I threw up before the exam again. If I fail one thing, they will finally see that I am nothing, that I have been faking all of it. There were dates, dozens of them. He wrote about not sleeping. He wrote about the panic attacks he had been having since he was 15 years old, in bathrooms, in his car. Once behind the grandstand at a meet 10 minutes before a race, he went out and won. He wrote about how everyone looked at him and saw a person who was easy, and how he could not tell a single soul that he was drowning, because if he did, the whole thing would fall over, and everybody would be so disappointed. My brother had been screaming for 4 years into a notebook. Then I got to an entry from about a year before, and it stopped my heart. He wrote about me. He wrote, "I told Mom and Dad to leave him alone about his marks tonight. I told them he is not like me, and that is a good thing. They listen when I say it. He gets to be a normal kid, and I would give anything for that. Sometimes I watch him at dinner just being ordinary, and I am so jealous I cannot look at him. He does not know he is the lucky one. I hope he never finds out how much I envy him." I sat on that garage floor for a very long time. Every single thing I thought I knew rearranged itself. All those years, my parents never pushed me, never asked why my marks were average, never demanded anything. I had read that as them not caring. It was not that. It was my brother standing in front of me the whole time, taking every expectation on his own back so that none of it would land on me. He had been protecting me from the exact thing that was crushing him. He built me a life where I was allowed to be ordinary, and I hated him for it. He came home at about 5. I was still sitting there with his notebook in my lap. He walked into the garage and saw me, and all the color left his face, and he said, "Put that down." And I did not. I said, "How long?" And he just stood there. And I said, "Daniel, how long have you been like this?" And my big brother, the school captain, the one with 9 trophies in the hallway, sat down on the concrete across from me and said, "Since year 9, in a voice I had never heard him use. We talked until it was dark, and neither of us turned the light on. I think that helped. He told me about the mornings he sat in his car in the school parking lot for 20 minutes, just breathing before he could go in. He told me he had wanted to quit running for 2 years, but could not, because our father drove him to every meet at 5 in the morning, and he could not bear to take that away. He told me he was terrified of the course he had just gotten into. Terrified. He had not slept properly since the letter arrived. And then I told him my part. I told him about the drawer with the certificate under the socks, about counting his trophies, about the restaurant and the 4 minutes, about the sentence I had thought in the dark for years. I told my brother that I had hated him, and I watched his face, and he did not get angry. He put his head in his hands, and he said, "I am so sorry. I thought I was keeping it off you. I did not know I was standing on you." And then we both sat on that floor and cried like children. We are grown now. Daniel got help, real help, and he tells me things while they're happening, instead of writing them in a book nobody reads. We talk every week. He came to my 30th and stood up and told a room full of people that his little brother was the strongest person he knew. And I had to leave for a minute because I could not hold my face together. 9 trophies are still on that shelf in my parents' hallway. They mean something completely different to me now. Every one of them cost him something none of us ever saw him pay. Here is what I know now, and I wish I had known it at 15. The person you envy is fighting a war you know nothing about. That easy life you can see from the outside is a room you have never been inside. And comparison is a thief. It does not just steal your peace, it steals your family. I had a brother for 17 years, and I spent them measuring myself against him instead of knowing him. I lost all that time to a competition that only existed inside my own head. Look at the people you love. Actually look. They may be drowning quietly. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. It truly means the world to me that you stayed. If this one touched your heart, please give it a like and subscribe to AU Family Channel, where a brand new story is waiting for you every single week. And remember, the person you envy is fighting a war you cannot see, and comparison will steal the family you already have. I will see you in the next one.